Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Australia's Tabletop Wargaming Network. And tonight we have got the Clash of the Titans 40k GT tournament preview. Welcome into everyone in chat. And tonight I'm ScottyD, and we're joined with Jack, one of the TOs for the tournament.
Hello, everybody. How are we all doing? Yeah, not bad, not bad.
And then we've also got Alex the Greek joining us as well.
How you going?
Yeah, going well, going well. Hope everyone has had a great Easter and spent some time with family and friends. I know, Alex, you were just saying before stream that you've got Greek Easter next weekend as well.
Yeah, it'll be good fun. I'll gain more weight and say that I'll lose it and won't do it. Can't wait.
Alrighty, so we are going to be talking about the Clash of the Titans 40k GT tonight. As I said, Jack is one of the TOs for the weekend, and he's also one of the members here on the network. You've seen him a couple of times with Dice Arcade GT, as well as at the Down Under 40k Major. And so, yeah, we just want to do a bit of a preview, talk about the terrain that's happening in the event, talk about Clash itself, because it's been going for like 16 years. Talk about the meta, the format of the event and such as well, and really get into some of the nitty-gritty details. Now, as per usual, ladies and gentlemen, we do stream these live on the ATWN's Twitch channel if you are watching this on YouTube afterwards, which is going to be posted up later on in the week, or if you are listening onto the Down Under 40k podcast, you can come and join us live, where we'll also be streaming the tournament over the weekend. We'll have Tyson Deeksy jumping on commentary for the first time as well. Jack will be there jumping in. I think we've also got Sam and maybe some of the other guys lined up to jump in to assist as well for the weekend, which is going to be absolutely awesome. So first off, Jack, I'm not sure if we've done this with you as of yet. Do you want to just give us a bit of a brief introduction about your background in the hobby, what armies you play currently, things like that, where's your local scene, all that kind of things?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been playing the game since late 7th edition. So I kind of, as a kid, played Warhammer very casually with literally my street neighbors, and then, dropped it during high school, picked it back up when I started repainting. And oddly enough, it's funny Greg's here, because the first thing that got me back into the game was AdMech. So I used to be an old AdMech player back in the day, before I rediscovered my love for two things at once: Eldar, which is currently my major super faction, and more specifically, Very Broken Rules and Ynnari. So I was playing them for about 2 years, finally switched over to who are my true passion project now. Anyone that knows me in the scenes knows that I'm a Drukhari player. I love them. They're probably my favorite faction in the game, uncontested. But I switch around a fair bit. I tease around with Sisters at the moment. I've got a Deathwatch army that I'm slowly trying to make. I'm following Greg's example and trying to pull my win rate up and represent. But yeah, my local scene, I moved up to Newcastle recently, so I used to be part of the Sydney scene. I still have my team based down there with Relic, who host Clash. But nowadays, obviously, we mostly play locally. I have the privilege of living with someone who plays Warhammer, so that's always really good to pick up games. And obviously, we're not far from Maitland or Madawi, and pretty entwined into the Down Under network that appears up here. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
You also you play Guard now as well, right?
Yeah. Last I checked, I am undefeated on Guard, so
yeah.
that is my great achievement. I'll be taking no further questions on Guard from this point onward.
Very cool.
Man of many factions by sounds. But it's great to have you with us. So I reckon let's jump in a bit of the meat and potatoes. And Jack, considering you're one of the TOs, I think you're going to be best at answering this. Do you want to give us a bit of the history of Clash and kind of a bit more of the backstory behind the tournament?
Yeah, so Clash is a really interesting tournament, and it's obviously, as you said, it's been going on for nearly 2 decades. This is the 16th Clash to run. Obviously, through COVID, they didn't have any, but they're starting to re-emerge again. It's a really community-focused event. Clash doesn't just cover Warhammer 40,000. It's actually almost like Sydney's WinterCon equivalent from back in the day down in Canberra. You've got, I think, Middle-earth has their biggest Australian tournament every year running at Clash. So they're actually larger than us this year. Age of Sigmar, junior 40k, which is really important because Clash is run by Anthony Felton, who oversees the entire organization, and he does so much amazing work year round, keeping this community together, making sure all the games are organized, and keeping the real spirit of what Clash is as an organization. But he runs that through a really nice wargaming club set up in the school that it's run at, Cherrybrook Tech, called the Cherrybrook Tech Adepts. And that's a wargaming club focused on teenagers and kids in the school basically getting into wargames and using it as a social output. So Clash doesn't just represent, to me, a GT that you rock up to. Clash is almost a celebration of hobby, holistically. You know, while we're playing GTs upstairs, there's a junior league playing downstairs that's often members from the wargaming clubs around, and they get to come up and see what we're going on. We get to intermix with, you know, Age of Sigmar players, Lord of the Rings players. It's a real celebration of hobby and what brings us together. And I absolutely adore it. It's really important to me as well. One of the reasons Relic picked it up over the last 2 years is because this was my first competitive tournament when I got back into the game. So this is how I met my scene of guys in the competitive tournament, and that's obviously blossomed out into knowing so much of the community over time. So it's always proved a really important event, and more importantly, an event that has never really been about prowess. It's actually been about community. And that's one of the things we try and stress with Clash every year is this is almost the GT where you kind of let your hair down proverbially and play what you want. Like, this is the experimental one. So I'm really glad it's running again. It is a bit different. One of the things that Clash does focus on in its mission statement is a far more narrative enjoyment aspect. So one of the things that will take people by surprise if they tune into the stream this week is the terrain is very different. And we've fielded a lot of comments about that. All of the terrain is done in-house by Cherrybrook Tech Adepts. So it's not in GW, it's all done as part of their hobby aspects, and we use that. So you will see different terrain setups. You won't see universal tables at Clash. It is very reminiscent of old 5th edition up to 7th edition terrain where, you know, your friend could be playing on a city and you could be playing in a desert. And terrain wasn't fixed like it is. So it offers a really good insight for people who are used to 8th edition and 9th edition WTC, where, you know, you rock up to the major and there are ruins everywhere. It's all really structured to kind of the soul of what Warhammer has always been to a lot of us, which is different engagements. It's about, oh cool, this is an Eldar Ice planet, this is this, this is this. But we're doing our best as organizers to also accommodate for the competitive scene. Yep. So as much as we've got different terrain and styles, we're doing a lot of work in the background to make sure that every army can still play on it. We've had criticism over a couple of years that it's been too light and too, you know, there hasn't been enough terrain. So we've done a good job. We're doing it the best we can at creating, obscuring, and basically telling players to be responsible and say, if there isn't enough terrain for you, come and communicate with the TO, have a chat, we'll set it up, we'll create rules to make it happen. Because we want a really fun environment. We don't want it to focus on small, we don't want it to be a bad event. So I'm really, really keen to see it, and I couldn't be happier to be running it. And more importantly, I'm really happy to let it come out on stream. I want to see people experience what Clash is like and how it differs from the everyday GT.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to be awesome to see this kind of event, because I know, yeah, you were saying that a lot of tournaments now have gone to this standardized terrain format just to make it a lot more competitive, a lot more uniform. So it's definitely, we've had Dasma in chat saying classic tournaments, like I remember playing in 5th edition and such as well, with that style of terrain where it was very table to table and you just navigated it as best you could. And that Dasman's also saying roles for deployment will matter. I reckon in that style of terrain where it can vary so much, it definitely can matter as well. And then question from Bylemon, one of our mates here at the network, one of our mods. He's asking you a question, Jack. How do you balance those requirements for comp players while still trying to balance that narrative desire?
A lot of it for me as a TO is, and this is something that I think does apply to competitive games as well, whenever you're not playing a dedicated WTC structure, is almost being real with your opponent, because we don't want boring games. I think we've all had that game where we've paired onto a table. There's virtually zero cover. We're playing Marine or we're playing Tau into Elder, and it's a bit like, okay, well, we know how this will work. What we're trying to do is encourage players to basically say, help each other help out. Like, we don't want big ruin dense boards, we don't want this, but we want a conversation between two players about creating an engaging game. And when the narrative gets lost, or if we need to shift into a more competitive structure, because that is what some people come to events to, and that is a very valid point, is not everyone plays it's a GT. It is still an ITC ranked event. We want TOs there to be able to basically set up games if we need to set up proper table structures. So a lot of it is being real. One of the things we've always focused on is that the top tables tend to resemble a lot more traditional competitive terrain, especially moving into the final rounds. But other than that, it's mostly just about letting players begin to have that conversation about communicating. I think it's really important that players slowly begin to learn how to set up tables, because it's weirdly a skill that not a lot of us do a lot of the time. We're very used to just setting up the same table over and over again. So we do our best. It will never be perfect, but it's about starting conversations and starting discussions. And I think it's been a really interesting joy to basically have that liaison with Warhammer and the non-competitive scene and try and basically find midpoints between them. Because I think sometimes both sides do lose the forest for the trees on the other. We are competitive wargamers. We are very passionate about our work. Sometimes we're a little too passionate about it, and vice versa with narrative. So it's kind of about trying to combine those as best we can and finding that beautiful middle ground where everyone can have fun.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's something that the scene's going to start moving towards more and more as well, is just being able to have that conversation. Because you notice a lot more nowadays, I don't know about you gentlemen, but even locally here in Canberra, having that conversation generally at the start is just like, okay, have you got any gotcha stratagems? Have you got any things that I should look out for? Or do you have anything that can advance and charge? Do you have anything that can advance and shoot whilst remaining stationary? Firing at full ballistic skill, do you ignore anything? Do you have anything that'll hinder my abilities? Those kind of questions a lot of players towards the top end will definitely think of. But the further down you go, not necessarily as often. But still, having that conversation about terrain can be so pivotal towards a game as well, and just being able to have both players on the same page is really important, in my opinion, too. What are your thoughts, Alex?
Yeah, I think it'll be good fun. I actually played Clash last year, so that was one of my first few GTs in a non-teams event. So I played back then the good old AdMech. Remember Josh McMillan absolutely clapping me with his brand new Void Weaver spam Harlequins list when they just first came out in the final table. So that was so I came second, I think. Maybe I came third. Can't remember. But it was a blast. I got to meet a lot of cool people there. We did clarify a lot of different things, with intent and working out what terrain should be what, and making sure that it's fair. Especially as an example, I had a unit of 20 Scotty. And, you could easily move 6 inches and shoot something. So we wanted to make sure that, hey, we understood that and made it clear where people could hide and, give it, a good enough footprint, because nobody likes to be shot away from, 39 inches away and then, it's game over without moving. So 45-inch third range, right? So just stuff like that. I thought it was fun. There's other stuff, mentioned there. I'm pretty sure, Jack, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, they're going to be doing the tuck shop thing again there with sausage sizzles and drinks and everything else. So that's going to be great. Any event that has food readily available, whether that's snacks, drinks, anything like that, is always a huge plus. You're in a school, so it makes things easy. You also have a lot of your own space if you need to move around and do things as well in between your games. Ample parking, which is always another plus as well, and the fact that it's getting streamed is going to be good fun. I mean, it's a fun event. I know some people might think, some people can go negative always in terms of how hyper competitive it can be, but it's not designed purely to be that, nor should every event purely be designed to be hyper competitive. Regardless, you can still be a competitive player and come here and still have fun. You just have to make sure that you understand, the right expectations and be here because it's actually a game that we love and enjoy. Simple as that. Play to your heart's, content, but have fun doing it.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So to get into the nitty gritty details of the tournament for the weekend, it is a 5-round, 2,000 point tournament. It is a down under 40k ranked, and as Jack has already said, an ITC ranked tournament, being a GT level event. So going to get some juicy ITC points. Not as juicy as all the points you would have gotten a down under 40k major, but still a good event to get some points at as well. So we're actually going to be releasing the missions for each round. Jack has kindly provided those for us to kind of walk through. So Jack, do you want to talk about what missions are for what round that players should be expecting to play?
Yeah, so one of the really interesting things with TOing is actually picking a mission pack that is, frankly, has variety. The missions are all pretty interesting. I know some are far more divisive than others. So we've gone for a selection, but one of the big mission statements that we had was not just picking what we considered the best 5. So we're starting off with, in my mind, one of the classic, simple missions, Death and Zeal, corner deployment, kill point secondary. It's a really simple mission, a really good way to get into an event because it's easy to set up. Really simple mission. A lot of variety there. Then we move into what I consider is one of the more interesting missions. I think it's the most unique one, Data Scry Salvage. Once again, people love it and hate it, but I think it creates some really interesting mission parameters given how that 4 objective in the middle structure works. And then mission 3 is the Scouring. So again, another very adaptive mission. We tried to make it so that you're not playing anything similar to last round or round 1. We want each day to feel like every mission is different and kind of get into that spirit. So Death and Zeal, Data Scry, Scouring are going to be our day 1. And then mission 4, so straight off the rank on day 1, is Conversion. Dawn of War. Again, I have my own opinions on Conversion. I don't think it's an amazing mission, but I don't agree with a lot of the chatter I sometimes hear about never playing the Dawn of War missions. I think they do have a place in the mission pack, and they do encourage a different mission parameter, but it is what it is. We chose to put that round 4 and definitely not round 5 because I do not like Conversion being the round 5, but it does spice things up. And another thing I will note before I reveal the final mission is we picked these missions after list submission, and we deliberately didn't release them before the event. Everyone's on an equal playing field that way. Again, that's an encouragement of not tailoring to the missions. We just wanted people to play what was there. But mission 5, so the deciding mission for the event, will be tear down their icons, which I think is one of the, again, similar to Data Scry. I think it's my favorite mission in the pack. It's pretty straightforward. It's got a really interesting secondary. And yeah, I think it makes for a really nice finale to a GT.
I like that you don't just pick the 5 best missions. I personally like to pick the 5 worst. But you going for middle ground is not too bad.
Yeah.
I don't have to play at my events, so it's fine. Everyone else has to suffer.
There was a tiny bit of pressure going around because our team name is Relic to play Recover the Relics mission 1, but unfortunately we decided
there's not many relics to recover. It's fine.
No, yeah. Recover the Relics tends to be an exercise of finding the 2 in front of you and then staying there for the rest of the game.
Yes.
So yeah, we've gone for some adaptive stuff. It should be really cool. I'm really excited to see it streamed. I'm really excited to see everyone play it.
Is it true that Relic is called Relic because they're relics of the past? Or am I just throwing shade right now?
Honestly, I can't remember the explicit reason we created the name. I think it's kind of like Chadmech, where we kind of just suggested a whole bunch, and everyone's like,
it was a joke, and for some reason it stuck, and I hate it.
Well, we a lot of us are older players coming back into the scene. And one of the distinct things that unifies the team is actually our love of Dawn of War, which was produced by Relic Entertainment. So at some point or another, it came up as a joke name and then just stuck.
Yeah,
so it works.
Yeah,
100%. So something I will note here, you've got 4 score 1, score 2, score more, and you've Data Scribe being the only score 2, score 3, score more, and that's in. I'll actually say that's in quite a pivotal position, being round 2, because that can really start to separate the field depending on how players go competitively playing into Data Scribe and what they might be matched up against. Some armies might struggle round 2 depending on their matchup. Some armies might just struggle with the mission in general. So I think it's actually a really smart choice putting that second, because then it can really split the field a lot and vary the battle points for the winners so highly.
Not only that, Data Scribe's the first one, yeah?
It's the second one.
Data Scribe's the second, sorry, and what's the first one?
Death and Zeal.
Death and Zeal.
2 sticky objective missions.
Yep.
Back to back. That'll be the most interesting part. Everyone's Marines there.
Exactly. We'll get into list analysis and meta watch in a moment, but one of the things that I do really like putting into missions is the sticky objectives. I think they do add a lot to the game, and I think we're seeing that when Space Marines play them on just about every mission. They create a lot of really adaptive tactics, so I like seeing how people react to them. But I also don't like them later on, because I feel like, weirdly enough, they can lead to some bizarre scenarios where the game kind of gets very static. So I like them early as a bit of a split. I like them early there, and yeah, I'm really curious. Like I love Data Scribe because it does separate the battle points, and I'm a massive fan at tournaments of, when you go to a tournament, this is a 57 player event. We know probably the 20 people that we'd expect to be in the top bracket of the top 30, just based on ITC past and whatnot. Data Scry is one of those great missions where I think it really does separate the wheat from the chaff. Like, Data Scry is hard to score massive points on, so when someone pops out of it with a 90, it's a nice way to split. The other thing with the event is we're not doing random pairings, which is another thing that pops up a lot and there's a lot of conversation about. I have always been an advocate that I don't mind players actually playing around placings and into a Swiss format. I think that actually does create some interesting intrigue through an event. Like, you almost get that beautiful excitement at CanCons of the past where players go around and they're like, oh, how many battle points is he on? Like, what do I need? Like, where do I want to sit? It creates a strategy within the strategy. So I'm always a fan to see it. And I'm not going to pretend like I put 14 hours into picking the right missions. We kind of just had a little discussion. Yeah, 12.35 if we have to be really specific. But it's really interesting. I hope it's good. I hope everyone likes it. And as always, one of the great comments is we are open to constructive criticism. Let me know what you think about the missions. Let me know what you think about the terrain and everything. We want to have these discussions. I think through DICE, through the major, what we're starting to do as a community and moving into 10th, I think it's going to be really important, given how drastic that's going to change the game, is we need to start having discussions about how do you want events run? What does the scene want? Because we as TOs have an idea. We like to run our own events, but we're collaborating constantly. I've taken ideas from the DICE Arcade GT for this. I've taken them from the major. We all draw from external sources, but we need good information, and sometimes we just need to test it. So I'm keen to see how it goes. I'm keen to see what people think. Obviously, it's the best mission pack ever because I wrote it, so no further statements.
I mean, it's got a tech priest in it. It's pretty good.
Precisely.
So just on that point, Jack, one thing I do want to note from the player schedule the play schedule in the players pack, and I'll bring it up on screen for everyone in chat. Day 1, 2 hours 45 minutes for the rounds. Day 2, 3 hours for the rounds. Is there some kind of rationale behind that choice?
We did fold that over from last year. I really liked for the last 2 rounds, especially for the top tables, if I'm being completely honest. I like having a bit of extra time. It kind of allows you a bit more time to set up and get going and whatnot. And yeah, I don't mind giving extra time where we can allow it. At the end of the day, we need to pack down, but we can afford 15 minutes to make those last 2 games easier. On day 1, we tend to find 3 hours is too much because that's committing to 9 full hours of gameplay, unless you're Alex and you table people in 2 turns. But yeah, it's interesting. Like we create, like, I want to give people more time there, but it just ends up being such a long day. And everyone's had that feeling where they hit round 3 and they're just like, all right, it's already 4 p.m. We're in for it. So I like giving extra time where we can, but I think for day 1, you kind of do need to keep that pace and schedule.
Yep. No, I definitely like that, especially those later 2 rounds for those guys at the top. That extra 15 minutes can mean the difference between finishing the game at the end of turn 4 and actually getting a natural conclusion, which can be massive when you're determining, like the way you said the pairings are, you're not introducing random. So it could mean the difference between someone coming 4th and someone coming 2nd because of battle points. Especially
on conversion. It makes a huge difference on conversion. So that's a good pick. That's on day 2.
We also have a policy as TOs where we don't like to see games talked out unless they absolutely need to be.
Yep.
Because I do think that is an element of the game that is important, as time management. So normally we say, if you're going to talk out a game, a TO needs to be present, because we need to know what's going on. We need to make sure everything's good. So giving that extra time, again, lets you hit those natural conclusions. And we do our best to try and keep everyone up to date and basically run with the old structure of, you should be at turn 2 by this point in the battle round. Like, if you're keeping pace with the time, you should be at battle round 3, instead of saying there's 2 hours left. Just to kind of give people an idea of where the game state should be at. And that's not that's not prescriptive. Like, at the end of the day, games are very different depending on matchups, but it gives you an idea that if you're still on battle round 1 and we're saying you should be on battle round 3, that's an indication, hurry up. So it does help with a lot of how we tend to try and run our events, and hopefully that reflects in the holistic experience.
100%. And just reading through some other cliff notes from the players pack as well. Important to note, chess clocks are allowed. If you want to use them, bring one that you've got. And then also in terms of sportsmanship and the way you should be conducting yourself is following the Down Under 40k code of conduct. So I believe a lot of the New South Wales guys are relatively familiar with that. I'm not 100% certain how familiar the ACT guys are, but I'm sure that hopefully that shouldn't come into play for them.
I've been down to enough of your wonderful events that I know your code of conduct is just as good as ours, so I'm sure we'll be perfectly okay.
Cool. Well, I reckon we start to get in some of the meat and potatoes, gentlemen, and let's start to look at the meta for the tournament. So up on screen, we've got the meta for everyone in chat, and the boys have got the images as well, so we can really talk into this a bit. So starting off, we've got the Space Marine Super Faction with only 3 players making up 5.3% of the meta. We've got 1 Dark Angel, 1 Iron Hands, 1 Ultramarines. No Space Wolves, no Death Watch, no Imperial Fists, nothing else.
No Death Watch.
I know, I'm so disappointed. The buy round, if we do have one, will be me playing Death Watch. So
I like how, like, legitimately the only 2 players who play Fists haven't shown up. They've shown up the last 2 events, but no. This one they say no. They're taking a break.
Yep. Even Todd Wedmeyer, who was playing on Salamanders, has jumped off onto something else.
Boo.
So,
you should have played Sally's.
I mean, he jumped onto World Eaters, so...
Yeah, it's Salamanders. Like, honestly, you know what? I think World Eaters are a better army, but if you play a mirror match, like a match of Salamanders versus World Eaters, Salamanders 100%. They just eat them up. That heroic intervention, damn, done.
Yeah. Cool. So then Imperium, we've got 15 players in attendance, making just over a quarter of the meta at 26.7%, with 6 Asher Militarum and 6 Adeptus Custodi players in attendance, 2 Adeptus Sororitas, and 1 Imperial Knight, who is Princeps Pat, sitting in chat with us as well. Also, hope everyone chat is enjoying the discussion that we've got for the Clash of the Titans 40k GT. I minced my words there for a second. I minced it. All right. Then we've got Chaos coming in with 10 players at the event of 17.8% of the meta, with 4 Chaos Demons and 2 Chaos Space Marines. I believe one's Night Lords, one's Iron Warriors. Then you've got 2,000 Suns and 2 World Eaters as well.
I will note just quickly for the Meta Watch, one of the lists from the event hasn't been submitted yet, so we're working on trying to contact that player, but I do believe they are also playing World Eaters, so there may be a third one popping up in there.
World Eaters players can't read, to be fair, so they wouldn't look at the players back. Yeah, it's a bit hard. You'll have to to let them know another way.
Push through the butcher's nails.
Yeah.
Then for Eldari, we've actually got 9 players in attendance, making 16.1% of the meta, with 3 Asayani, 3 Harlequins, 2 Eldari, and 1 Drakari in attendance. That's a great spread for Eldari, in my opinion. It's great to see them out in such force. Then for Force of the Hive Mind, you've got 4 players making up 7.1% of the meta, with 2 of each Gene Stealer Cults and Tyranids. It's great to actually see Gene Stealer Cults coming back into the meta as well, particularly after Eric doing so well with them a week and a half ago at the Down Under 40k Major.
I'm pretty confident that Eric could take 2 combat patrols of Gene Stealer Cult and somehow still take on most 2,000 point armies. But it is really nice to see variety, and GSC are one of those armies that a lot of people have been poo-pooing off and saying they're not great, and it's nice to see them slowly rising again.
Yeah, these cells are interesting. You know, they're still the highest win rate globally in the game. Like, they're in a really good spot. They have amazing secondaries. I think they should be getting more play. They're obviously an expensive army though to get into, so I think that's part of the reason why, you know, armies like them and AdMech get less representation.
Because they're just so complex to play and figuring out how the pieces all go together for it, right?
Plus the cost to actually do it. You know, you have to work that out, but then you also have to buy crazy value of models, right? Like, I mean, let's look at AdMech really quickly. You have $98 for 54 points in your list, or you have $84 for 55 points in your list per model, and you're expected to run, you know, 10 boxes of each of them. So,
or you go back to old school GSC, which I used to play, and you were playing 9 Ridge Runners at one point or another, which was something like $700 of Ridge Runners in an army.
It's crazy.
That was only like 450 points of your army as well. So they're expensive. They're also pretty hard to paint. Like that is another aspect, is there's a lot of hobby lag behind GSC. Most modern lists are running anywhere between 80 to 90 neophytes, up to 120. And that's a lot of models that you actually have to paint, and they're very detailed. So, and
that's just in your troops.
Yeah, exactly.
You add on another 30 Atlan Jackals, and you know, you're looking at 150 plus models for a 2,000 point list. It's crazy. And then figuring out how to play that and maneuver that many models in a 2.5 to 3 hour time limit it takes work to figure it out, and Eric's clearly put the work in, so it's great to see some of these other players trying to jump in and, well, not trying to, jumping in and giving it a go and trying to do it. And so then for the last super faction, we've got the Xenos making up 11 players in the meta, coming in just shy of 20% at 19.6. We've got 8 Tau Empire, 1 Leagues of Votan, 1 Necron, and 1 Orc player in attendance to round out the meta. I think we were talking before stream, and we were saying there was only a couple of factions that aren't represented. Alex, you saw that we didn't have Death Guard, Chaos Knights, Grey Knights, and AdMech.
And also AdMech, yeah.
Yeah, so
so there's 4.
Only 4 factions not in attendance, which I'm not sure about you guys, but I'm seeing this across multiple events now here in Australia, that the meta spread is really good under Arcs of Omen.
It's not bad.
Yeah, it's a lot better, but I think what we're also seeing with Arcs of Omen is people are kind of moving back to their own armies right now.
The chapter calls, and we
basically
answer.
Shifted the game completely, and coming into 10th, people are starting to just play with what they want to. So it's a bit of a representation like that. I mean, I for one am amazed that there are 8 Tau players. it really does signal their fall into corn.
The chapter calls and we answer.
But I'm also curious for everyone here, just quickly. Are we on the Tower Fish People camp or are we on the Tower Cow People camp?
I think they don't deserve any representation personally. So,
Yeah, well, unfortunately, there are 8 at the event, so we have to get this down really quickly.
I've always
don't worry,
been
if you add the rest, there's still a minority. It's fine.
I've always been a fish person, camp guy personally. I collected Tau at one point.
The real answer is that they're bird people because the only real ones to play are the crew.
Yes.
Like if you're honest about yourself, they're the best units. So they're bird people. Done.
Sold.
Cool. So to come into the faction podium in first place, we've actually got Tau Empire, being 8 players with 14.3% of the meta. In second place, you've got a tie of Adeptus Custodes and Asher Militarum, both representing of 6 players for 10.7% of the meta each. And then Chaos Demons coming in just behind them at 4 players with 7.1% of the meta. And the faction podium, I like to do this as a bit of an idea of how big a play they have in the overall event. They make up 22 plays in attendance and 39.3% of the meta in total. Gentlemen,
yeah,
what are our thoughts on the podium?
Well,
yeah, go on. Sorry.
I was about to say, I'll start off by saying I'm viciously disappointed in Relic for not embracing our Eldar side and bringing 3 of the 6 guard players to the event. So you can blame us for that and that meta representation. But I think it's pretty clear that I mean, if you had have told me what the meta was going to be for Clash, you know, based on everything, I would have expected Space Marines to still podium. So that's the one big question mark one for me, is where are all the Space Marine players? Otherwise, Guard and Tau makes sense. I know a lot of people in Sydney love Tau. Clash has a reputation for having very light terrain. So, you know, often the Tau players jump out every now and then and go, ooh, we can shoot things. So I'm keen to see how that works. But they don't, again, as we said, there's a lot of diversity. And one of the things that will probably become apparent is there will be some real landmine matchups for certain players. Like, there's nothing funnier than rocking up to an event and going, there's one list I can't beat. There's only one of this faction. There's only one Votan player, and then having to try and hope that you dodge that for the entire game. So I like the diversity. I think it'll create a really interesting environment.
100%. Yeah. And I've been called out in chat. I got the stat wrong. It's actually 24 players, which will mean it pushes it up over just over 40%. Thank you to Fiend Gaz in chat for pointing that out for us.
That's it. I think I'm keen for this. You know, looking at the overall meta, knowing what I know about Clash, you know, I've got a few people that I want to place my bets on. Sometimes not all of them is based on who I think will win, but who I want to win. It's going to be either Nathan Princhy on his Custodes. It's going to be Cooper Fitzgerald. I think he is an absolute gun, and I think he can definitely get it with this event as well on his Tau. Yeah, other ones that I'd love to see is, you know, Will Wyckoff on Dark Angels representing Space Marines. But outside of people in my team, I could probably stop talking about them. Let's say, you know, as well, you know, Gary on Votan. God, I'd love it if he could just like show off and with his Votan and just like kick everyone's butt. And you know, knowing what he scores and how he does his games, I think he can do really well.
He just needs to dodge the 4 demon players at the event, because I believe he played 3 out of 6 games into demons at the GT.
Ooh,
or the
that
major.
hurts.
So yeah, but yeah, I'm really keen. Players to watch for me. I mean, I'd love to see either Chris Juong or Lee Connor randomly come back and win an event after not being at one for years. They're both really old vets of like competitive 40k. Obviously they've spent some time out of the game, so I'm keen, but they're both playing guards, so who knows, maybe Inflexible Command just lets them win the event. Again, outside of Relic, I'd love to see Cooper win, similar to Alex. Cooper and I have been playing Warhammer for years. Like, I got him into the game, both by force and by interest. So I'd really love to see him actually take a podium at a GT. He has put so much effort into this game over the last 3 years, and it's not a question of if, it's a question of when, as to when he's going to take down one of these big events.
Yeah, 100%. I think for me, I'd be remiss if I didn't back the Canberra boy, Rowan Kennett, with Tyranids. I reckon he's got a really interesting build that he's absolutely been monstering people with locally, and he is
Quite
in
literally.
attendance. Quite literally. I also agree. Cooper, like we've seen him on stream at CrewCon last year. He's been playing Tower for a long time, from my understanding, so he's definitely a faction specialist. So he knows what he's doing with them. I reckon, yeah, I agree with both of you gentlemen. He's another one to keep an eye out for. Also, important to note, there's also Brodie Middleton, part of Team Australia, run and guard. So definitely someone to not...
Another go Chadmek.
Another player to keep an eye on as well. I mean, the Team Australia guys are always, Alex being involved there. Definitely keep your eye on them always, as they are prepping so hard for the WTC. So they're looking to come out guns blazing every single event they go to get as many reps in, to make sure at their peak, then learn 10th, and then go into the next WTC really well. So we're going to jump into some lists, but before we do so, I want to thank Joyless Cupid and Princeps Pat for the follows to the ATWN. Really appreciate it. And just want to do a little bit of promotion section before we do so, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who do enjoy the content that we create here on the ATWN, and you want to make sure that you're able to check it out throughout the week so you know what's going on, make sure you follow us on all of our socials. We post our schedules on Sunday afternoons or evenings, and that goes out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as in the Discord, which I'll post that link up there as well. That's where you can see the tournament calendar for the Southeast Coast of Australia as well, so you know what events are coming up. We mark on there which events we are streaming as well for the network, and that's going to get a bit more packed as I start to organize things for the back end of the year, get more events lined up, which is going to be really cool to have, because I know New South Wales goes off, but a lot of other states are going off back end of the year as well, which is going to be great. Now, if you do enjoy the logo for the ATWN, something we've got going on is we've actually got pre-orders for the ATWN objective markers. They're neoprene objective markers, very similar to a lot of the standard ones you see around at the moment. And they're a set of 6 for $50, with including postage to anywhere within Australia. Those pre-orders are open until the 17th of April. So if you want to get your order in, make sure you head over to the Ko-Fi page and you can place your order there. Or if you do want to support us financially and you don't feel like subbing here on Twitch, head over to there. You can make a one-off tip if you'd like, or you can join one of the 4 different membership levels that have various benefits, which start from as little as $4 Australian a month. And any support that you provide goes back into improving the content, keeping the equipment going, paying for some of our overhead that we have at events, and as a business in general. Alrighty, so with that out of the way, let's jump into talking about some of these lists. So I'm just going to swap some things over here. I think the first list we have got is actually going to be Cooper's Tau.
Yeah, boy.
So I can't remember who we lined up to discuss Cooper's Tau, but I'm happy to walk through it unless one of you gentlemen would like to.
I'm more than happy to do it, because he was literally at my place yesterday explaining how his list works.
No, don't give away the secrets.
Oh no, just what it does, because I read Tau lists and my eyes kind of glaze over, but he did a really good job of explaining it.
Sure thing.
It's obviously an Octobomb and Tau Empire detachment. Compulsory type is fast attack, and he's fast at enclaves. So for anyone that doesn't know, if he's within 9 inches when he shoots, he gets he counts as being under the effects of a marker light, so +1 to hit, and he rerolls a wound whenever he attacks. Of note, that is in combat as well, so be scared of the melee tower. He's got a Cadre Fireblade with Exemplar of Cayenne, which is a redeploy stratagem. He can redeploy 1 unit if he's in Montcar, or 3 if he's in Cayenne, so that gives him a lot of tactical deployment flexibility. 2 marker drones on the Fireblade. Got a Commander in Cold Star Battlesuit, Precision of the Hunter, which is full rerolls to hit and wound. It's got a high output burst cannon, 2 plasma rifles, and a thermoneutronic projector. Very standard loadout. It has so many guns, both high damage plasma and also infantry clearing shots, and all of it rerolls hits and wounds. The neutronic as well, being a combat weapon on a Tau model, and having full reroll hits and wounds, is an absolutely critical piece to the army. He's got a Commander in Crisis Battlesuit, Exemplar of Montcar as well. missile pod, plasma rifle, plasma rifle, plasma rifle. So big damage commander there. I'd have to check what Exemplar of Monkar is. I believe it's he picks a unit within 6 at the start of his turn, and if they are within 9 when they shoot, you reroll all wound rerolls. So massive way of putting damage on with his crisis bricks. Speaking of, he's got 2 10-man breach teams and then a big squad of crisis battlesuits. Ever since he's been going to events, I don't think I've ever seen him play less than about 6 of them. In this case, he's got 5, which are all Psychic Ion Blaster, Plasma Rifle, Burst Cannon, and Target Lock. The Sergeant is a bit different, just has a Burst Cannon, a SIB, a Plasma Rifle, a Shield Generator, Iridium Battlesuit, and Stim Objectives. Sorry, tell lists are a bit confusing. They take about 5 minutes to read through various bits, but that model, for reference, has a 2-up armor save, a 4-up invul, and once per game, he can get a 4-up feel no pain on that model. That model is incredibly hard to shift in the wrong circumstance. They've also got a bunch of drones, 2 shield drones and 3 marker drones. He's got Alex's favorite, 3 squads of 4 Crute Hounds, his Ouch Puppies, as I believe they are firmly called, a Hammerhead gunship with 2 burst cannons, and then 2 Riptides with 2 plasma rifles, ion accelerators, early warning override, which is Overwatch for free and on 5s, and target locks to ignore cover, and velocity trackers, so +1 to hit against fly. Then he's got 2 Devilfish with 2 gun drones each. So that seemed like a lot of interesting stuff, but I promise this is like playing a chess game. Cooper and his Tau plays a phenomenal tactical game, and Tau is one of the best armies at doing it. They have a lot of really neat tricks, not a lot of gotchas, but just a lot of interesting ways to manipulate how they play. They can be aggressive, defensive. Obviously, their entire secondary kit is not as strong as a lot of other armies we see, but they're all based around the entire army is built to score its secondaries. So I'm really keen to see how it plays. I know for a fact that he knows the list well. I know for a fact that it's very good at killing a lot of what's in the meta. But it still does often have weaknesses, like Tau are relatively fragile. One of the jokes I believe Cooper was saying to me the other day is that Tau actually lose a lot of shooting wars in the modern game. So they win their shooting wars by actually playing like Eldar and shooting and leaving. The Riptides can move after shooting, the Crisis Suits can move after shooting, and they are very fast. So I'm really keen to see how he implements them on the missions. And I know that he has an absolute treasure trove of experience when it comes to piloting a list like this.
Definitely. Like, even just so, for a bit of context, I've listened to Hayden Walduck discuss Tau. And so the breaches in Devilfish are really pivotal for scoring aerospace targeting relays. And depending on the missions, you can actually fly the Devilfish up and score the furthest one away turn 1 pretty easily with how you disembark and place your models to be able to place them and then be within range to perform the action to score that secondary. And getting that turn 1, I think he was talking one of the events end of last year, he scored 15 or the max on that secondary turn 1, which is insane. So you can see those kind of pieces in his list. Again, that single crisis suit block is what I've noticed a lot of Tau players are going towards that rather than doing like 2-3 man bricks. I think something also important to note is that the Cold Star is the Warlord as well for the army. So that's why I think he's a bit more varied instead of going the standard crisis with just all the plasma. The plasma one is there to kill big shit, to put it lightly. It's there to kill Tyranids pretty heavily. The big stuff. It's there to kill dreadnoughts. It's there to kill whatever else could be hunting. It's there to just go, I don't like you. I'm here to kill you from a decent range and not get trapped. The Crute Hounds, obviously great screening pieces. And then Hammerhead to provide some long range fire, and then the Riptides as well. They're starting to come back in fashion. I remember early days of the Tau, Riptides weren't really taken, whereas now they're being taken a lot more. So yeah,
They the Riptides, similar to the Crisis Suit, the Riptides provide exactly what you were talking about with that Crisis Commander. Ion Accelerators, when they overcharge, are 8 shots at strength 9 or 10 minus 3, 4 flat damage. With Velocity Trackers, that's +1 to hit against fly, and then they've got 2 plasma rifles on top. Those things are similar to Hammerheads, but in a more varied way, which I like. Because a lot of people love Hammerheads, a lot of people are scared of Hammerheads, but the Riptides, they're more flexible, they move faster, they can hold objectives a lot better. They're actually also really tanky. They can get a 5-up feel no pain from their drives, 2-up save, 4-up invul, I think 14 wounds, T7. So yeah, they're a really nice tech piece in the army, and their mobility and flexibility around angle shooting is basically unparalleled at the moment outside of like Ravenwing or something adjacent to that.
For sure. Any thoughts, Alex?
Yeah, doing town things. Cooper knows how to position really, really well. I think the tests will be how that operates, obviously within this terrain site. But on a traditional, table, I've seen him being able to make sure that he can edge out, get an angle with Riptide, hide them both, and then also do the same thing with the Crisis. Playing that game for 2 to 3 turns, and then making sure that the game is now 1,000 points versus 2,000, and then just sweeping. So, he knows what he's doing. He knows how to do it. He obviously has a bit more forward pressure now with Devilfish and other things like that. I think he is definitely one to watch. So, can't wait to see it. I want only good things for him as well. He personally, to me, if he already has more crew than any other list, he deserves the win.
Yep, for sure.
Unfortunately, I don't believe he does.
Ah,
Yeah, sadly. But I'll have
all
to
right,
double
he
check.
deserves to lose.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So we're going to move on to the next list, and this is one of the Canberra lads, so I think I might jump onto this one. So once BCP decides to load, so this is Dale Marn's list. He is running Eldari, which is Craft Worlds and Harlequins.
Yeah, love this list.
So he's running a Sadeth of Light, Light Sadeth Patrol. He's got a Shadow Seer with Fog of Dreams, Mirror of Minds, and Smite. A troop of, I believe that's going to be 5 players, with 2 Harlequins Blades, 1 Harlequin Embrace, 1 Harlequin's Kiss in there. Or that might actually be 4.
They're 5. They're 5 man
5.
models.
Okay.
5 man units. Yeah.
Then the next one is another troop that has got 4. They're just bare bones, all blades and pistols. Then you've got 1 Death's Jester that's got the favor of Sirosh. The Harvester. Sorry, I'm See, I suck with pronunciation of Eldar stuff. And Harvester of Torment with Champion of Eldari strat. Then another Death Jester with the Rift Ghoul as well, and then 2 Starweavers. Then he is running a Far-Flung Craft World detachment that is Expert Crafters and Masterful Shots, so custom Craft World, I believe. No Force Org, he's got a Seer Council with a Warlock Skyrunner that's got Protect/Jinx and Smite with a Witchblade. Baharoth in there, a Farseer Skyrunner with Fateful Divergence, Executioner, Mark of the Incomparable Hunter with Kurnos' Bow, Smite as well, and is the Warlord. Pretty spicy stuff. Then Morgan Ra as well. So 2 Phoenix Lords in there. Then 5 Rangers with the Wireweave Net, 5 Dire Avengers with the Exarch in there as well with dual Shuriken Catapults, 5 Striking Scorpions with Biting Blade and Crushing Blows on the Exarch, 2 units of 3 Shroud Runners, a Viper with Scatter Laser and Twin Shuriken Catapult, then 3 support weapons with D Cannons, and then a Wraith Seer with Quicken and Restrain, D Cannon, and Smite. This list comes in at 1998 points, and I believe he starts with 3 CP. Spicy list. I've seen him in playing something similar to this at our local leagues, and he's been doing pretty well with it. And it's really interesting to see him kind of tech into the Harlequins for it.
Yeah,
I think it scores secondary as well, though. Like, I mean, the mix is really good for getting you behind enemy lines, your banners or your R&D, and then also like your warp ritual or even psychic interrogate, right? Because there's actually instances on this terrain set where you could see the character, so it doesn't matter too much. I think you have options there, and if you do want to go for the option of getting a bit more CP, then you can do that one too. I mean, he's got some really cool things. He's got the best Primaris Chaplain model out there in Morgan Ra. So yeah, cool.
He's I absolutely adore this list. This is what I love about Eldar players. My faction in particular, is I love looking at the variations between players in them. Only because I pick it up. Morgan Ra is actually really interesting. For those that don't know, 6 shots at strength 7, neg 2 damage. And every time he kills a model, you're -2 to leadership in both shooting and combat. Obviously, he's still a Phoenix Lord. Importantly, he can get in transports. Not that it's relevant in this list, but that can come up. Just a really good shooting platform. The Death Jester as well, or Jeff Dester, as I believe most people refer to him. Favorite of Chigorak is after he shoots, he can change one of his dice to a 6. And the other part of that is 6s generate 3 shots. So he is an absolute beast of putting out damage. This is a list that has characters that do most of its damage output. He's got
Colonel's bow,
Colonel's bow, 2 Death Jesters. This has a lot of character output, so it can play a far more passive game as Eldar. And I love Colonel's bow, even though it's not in Hail of Doom. It's still a really efficient secondary tool. It's a Farseer that can just pump out so many model wounds.
And to be honest, with masterful shots, like as an example, that Morgan Rao play, not bad. The AP 2 damage flat is a good spot, right? You're being able to ignore light cover.
Unfortunately, Morgan doesn't get the benefit. Yeah, Phoenix Lords are adjacent to Craftworld. But he's still great. 6s are still AP4 on him. And 2 model wins in addition. It's just a really fun list. You can tell that this is going to play the classic Eldar doctrine of Monty Python's How Not to Be Seen. Most of its damage comes from D-cannons, which are amazing for hiding characters because they are vehicles. So it's going to come from D-cannons, Wraithseers, and basically everything playing passive. The Harlequins are really good because they actually give Eldar a massive mobility boost. This list can be so far in your face turn 1 as well with Shroud Runners. It's not even funny. So I'm really keen to see how this plays out.
100%. 100%. Alrighty, I reckon let's move on to the next list. And it is going to be, if it decides to load, it is going to be Gary Morris's Leagues of Votann list.
Gary Morris.
Alex, do you want to walk through this one?
Look, this is my boy. I don't know if anyone knows this, but he's the only proper challenge I've had to AdMech in performance because he's absolutely gun. He's really basically a gun on whatever he brings in, though. But he's always been running weird Votann lists that seem to be doing really well for him. And one thing that he does, and I've only seen one other person do this really well, is just score really high with them. And I think that this is another list that he will be able to utilize and score high with. Obviously, having your Forge Master at the start, running GTL, the Great Arthurian League. He's got Grimnir. He's got Carl, not High Carl. He's got Uther the Destined as well. I love that he's actually got Uther in there. Not that many have him, but I think that opens up a few extra things for you that you can actually do in the list for scoring. A bunch of Hearthkin Warriors, and this is something that he loves. I think he ran at one point 100. Gary, you're gonna have to correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe it was 120. I can't remember. Maybe 110. But he runs a whole bunch of them. Each one of them will always have a Medipack, and I believe he does have it here. So they're actually annoying to shift. Votann obviously being AOC, nowhere else to wound, and then being able to have the Medipack as well is going to be something that's very, very hard to shift. But not only that, because of what they actually have equipped with, I believe that they can also Auspex you if you come down, so they're in a really good spot there. For fast attack, he has his Pioneers, which are there. Obviously, they're OBSEC, they pre-game move, they're very fast, they fly, and I think fly is the most important part. So they can easily navigate the field, unlike many other bikers in the game. And then they have obviously OBSEC on top of that, so they're in a good spot there. I do like that he's only running units of 3 because they do have quite large base sizes. So if you're trying to hide them, it can be difficult. Pushing through though, he does have the Thunder Kitten with conversion beamers. I really like conversion beamers. They're just fun. I don't think you always need to run like the crazy grab variants or anything like that. So I think they're in a good spot there. Then he's got the Hecaton Land Fortress. Is it just 1 or 2?
He's running 2.
He's running 2. So it's very meaty, very tanky. Now, if you do, as an example, get into a point where you're getting alphaed and getting hit, it's still hard to shift, especially when you have your little tech priest there that can heal them. Flat 4, and also shrug off one of their damages. They can be a nuisance to deal with. T8 as well, so in a really good spot there. On top of that, similar to what Jack was saying about the previous list, his characters can do a lot of work in this list. So we'll see what happens.
I definitely reckon.
And there you go, it was 110 he ran before. So there you go.
It's a lot. Like, even just looking at the Hearthkin Warriors, you're 100% right. They've got the med packs in there. They've got the comms array. I believe it's the comms array that allows them to do that OSPEC scan there. But running, I think it's 2 units that have got the bolters and 1 unit that's got ion as well. So he's done both sides of the tech there. Same weapons. He's got the Magna Rails and the missile launchers in there as well, just not on the iron unit. So I have a gut feeling the iron unit might go in one of the land fortresses to go forward, quite possibly, or even outflank. Use strat reserves to bring them on. But yeah, characters definitely, like, the minute I saw the Grimnir, I actually really loved it as a character. Like, it's great to see them having, it's not just another AdMech where, nothing against AdMech, but when they were initially released, it was like they just kind of had one trick and one trick only. Whereas this, adding in the Grimnir, adding in some of these other units, it felt like, okay, there's different play. There's different objectives that you can score here. It's not like, they can do psychic secondaries if they want to, and that's probably something that the Grimnir is going to be good for in this list. To, maybe it's psychic interrogation, or maybe it's warp ritual, depending on the board, depending on the opponent, the matchup, can really determine what a psychic secondary could look like. The Carls being able to just go, hey, I don't like you, and put a token on units just to improve the firepower. I do also like that he's got the Thunderkin. That's a very rare unit. Like, we've got a couple of Votan players here in Canberra, and I hardly see the Thunderkin. So it's good to see.
I think they're in a good spot right now. They're one of the few things that didn't go up in the army. The grab is absolutely decimating into Marines right now, obviously, but I'm a big fan of the conversion mill.
Yeah. And then still sticking with the Magna Rail cannons on the land fortresses, but also the panspectral scanners, which I think is a good choice. The single-use missiles I'm not a fan of on the fortresses, so sticking with the scanners is always a good pick, in my opinion. But yeah, Jack, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, one of the other great benefits of most of the army is the 1CP shoot after we've been shot at. That's another really great thing to play with those Hearthkin. I really like Gary's as well, because I've seen a couple of Votan players running around with just empty land fortresses, and I think that's objectively incorrect. Like, I think if you've got that big tank, you want to hide those Hearthkin units in there. They're so critical to covering Votan's weakness, which is basically a really elite army that doesn't have a lot of, chaff, or even guys that can just go and do actions or sit around. So I think that's pretty cool. I'm not sure if he can split one of the squads up between the 2 land fortresses. Was that just a Sagittar thing?
I think it's just the Sagittars.
Oh, they can split?
Oh, you mean
yeah,
as in have one unit? Well, they already split the units there, right? Oh no, they're not. The units of 10. Sorry. I think it's a SAG thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's another. But yeah, look, I really like it. Again, having all that damage in the characters, it can stat check you. One of the things that Votan will always struggle with is secondaries. Their suite naturally isn't great, so the Grimnir does so much for the army. I assume he's given it the CP regen spell and fortify,
I think it was the +1 toughness. I can't remember.
Yeah, fortifies the +1 toughness.
Yeah, so crushing contempt and interface echo.
Oh no, he hasn't. Yeah.
Yeah, so interface echo is gain a CP. I don't know what crushing intent is. But yeah, the Grimnir, as Scotty said, opens up secondary paths. I don't think you're going to see a lot of Warp Ritual out of Votan, if I'm being honest, but it's there. It's an option.
I think it's good.
Yeah, you can play it with 2 land fortresses. Like a Grimnir in the middle of 2 land fortresses is probably the most secure boy in the world. So we'll see how it goes. I love watching and listening to Gary's wonderful voice whenever he's playing Warhammer. It's always a joy. So I'll be very keen to see these rocking around.
Ultimately, and I think Gary knows this, his chance of victory ultimately just depends on whether he's rolling the dice or someone else is. So, Gary, don't roll any dice during the event, mate. I think he'll be alright after that.
Or pairing into demons. He doesn't need a repeat of his major experience.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fair.
And speaking of which, next up, we'll have, when BCP loads, we're going to have Joshua Brody's Demons list.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know Josh played demons.
Yeah, neither. Weird.
All right, who would like to run through it?
He did send me this list, so I'm happy to if you guys want me to.
Yeah, go for it.
The idea behind it was that he's played Clash, I think, in the past. I mean, let's be honest, he popped out of the womb holding a paintbrush and a mini. So he's been playing for a while. I think he's only slightly older than Clash is. So he designed this list, and it's the first time he's trying a Tzeentch detachment. Outside of playing it with T-Sons, obviously, but this is the first time playing it because he was, kind of thinking about what he's had as an experience before in Clash. So he's decided to bring this out and, removed a lot of the Slanesh, removed all the Khorne, and it's just going to be having this kind of, archetype. And the reason for it, pure and simply, is, hey, I feel that there's going to be a lot of shooting armies in there. Let's make it so it's really hard for the shooting armies to shift me. And he was right. There's a lot of shooting armies, Tau, there's 8, there's 6 guard, and then now there's him with a 3-up save against both those armies. So he's got the Demon Prince of Chaos. He loves his Demon Princes. The main reason for that, I believe, over one of the big boys is mainly so that he can still leverage and hide behind a piece of ruin and not be shot down straight away, because obviously the greater demons, they're quite large. You're going to be able to shoot them from turn 1, even if they're hiding behind a ruin, because it's true line of sight. They can shoot through the windows. So having a Demon Prince there helps, cover that a bit. He's got 2 Fate Skimmers. Initially was mucking around with just 1, but he needs to have another so he can do psychic actions and secondaries there. And then you also have the Fluxmaster. It's funny though that these characters do dish out a lot of damage as well. They can do a lot of mortal wounds there, so it's something to watch. He has 10 blue horrors, which is just very simple, and then he also has the 10 pink horrors, and these are going to be very, very annoying to shift off an objective. If there's something out in the open, these are a really good one to hold it against shooting. From there as well, he has 3 Exalted Flamers. Now, fun fact about them is getting +1 strength now as well for all the other Flamers, including their own, and they're AP 3 damage flat. So they're going to be very scary and hitting hard. Flamers as well. Obviously, he has a bunch of Flamers, as you can see. He's going Flamer Central here. He's got a bunch of Screamers, and Screamers are very, very good right now. They move super fast. And yeah, it's just fantastic there. Burning Chariots, which are a great pick, I think, right now as well. And then last of all, why Pure Tzeentch? Well, then you also get the Warp Locus. So you're getting your +1 to hit as one of your Warp Locuses, which is probably the most popular one. Each one of these, Flamers included, everything like that, is +1 to hit. So all of a sudden now, they're hitting on 2s. Very scary. They're basically at their old point at that point, right? You're only missing on 1s. So good to see. It does have a fair bit of mobility, with the Screamers, the Flamers, the Exalted Flamers, the Chariots. There's Fly, there's everything else there. It doesn't give out a lot for Bring It Down. It doesn't surprisingly give out too much anyway for No Prisoners either. Has a lot of mortal wounds still in the list, and it has a lot of damage.
Yeah, very much.
And yeah,
so.
one of the guys just said he likes this list a lot for a Tzeentch list with Big Lands. Yeah.
Like, it really focuses on that MSU aspect, and that's something I kind of like, because, you know, you've got the Exalted Flamers there that can do heavy damage when they need to. The Flamers can deal with more your heavier infantry, but not, you know, your vehicles and stuff. They just put out so many shots. Screamers are there, they can tie up things, and they've got, I'm trying to remember that ability they have where they can just pretty much portal and then come 9 inches away from other enemy units. So they're probably decent for, like, behind enemy lines, quite possibly, and vamp them on from
I think
potentially, the advanced
you'll
teleport,
you'll still run probably reality with this list, because
Yep.
if the enemy comes out near the mid, you just take them out, and you're always going to get like a safe 12, probably, most realistically, which is really good, because what it means then is that instead of you knowing that you need to sack a unit and then push down to their end, you don't have to actually with this list. The only time you need to is when you get angles. So it's a very smart play. You also have enough units that you can still do things like banners, especially early on, and then you kind of dictate where the enemy has to actually come to you, because Reality Rebels, banners, and then things like Warp Ritual make it a very passive game for this type of army, despite being so output heavy. So it's really good. Yeah, and the spoilers, somehow he was right. You know, the spoilers is a pretty good pick for this too. You got a bit of flex. I mean, even no prisoners, right? Depending on what the enemy is, you can also, you know, operate with that too.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Jack?
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of stole my thunder on the idea, but I think it's worth reiterating again. It's such a good list at scoring passively, and it's so good at responding to midboard threats and angles. It's just amazing. Really nice to see Pure Zinch. I know there's been a lot of people complaining about the Demon's Codex and how Warp Locuses work. So it's nice to see the mono one kind of creeping back in now that Flame has been nerfed. But it's also a good reminder to people that demons aren't by any means out for the count right now.
No, they're an amazing army.
They're in a really, really good spot right now.
Yep.
They have a lot of really flexible secondary choices. Even Nourished by Terror is something that can come up a lot. Not so much with this build, but I know it was popular more with the Bellicore ones. But yeah, it's Josh Brody playing demons, man. Like, normally my metric when I look through lists for reviewing is, do I want to play against this? And this is very much firmly in my, no, I think I do not. Not because it's, like, for no other reason. I love playing against Josh, but I don't like playing against his lists. He's very good with them, and he knows how to play them. So it's always a sweat. So I'm keen to see how he plays it.
I have heard though that for every single 10 points that you take off him in a game, he will paint one red Corsairs model. So that's really good. At this rate, we should eventually get him to play red Corsairs by like 2027.
Nice.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
Yeah, and we got Junos in chat just saying he thinks Meta Monday has demons as an A tier with a 56% win rate over the past 5 weeks as well. So demons are quite strong at the moment. They've been, they've even been strong since LVO. We saw Matt Morrisoli go over there and crush it with them. And yeah, they've just been really, really solid ever since.
Also, I have just done recent stats on this for the podcast of Circle Watch, but demons are actually the highest performing Australian-based faction in the game right now.
Right.
So they are doing exceptionally well. Well, Australians are doing exceptionally well with demons. Part of that is obviously, off the back of last, weekend, we had, Matt Morrisoli and Joshua Brody in the top 10. So, yeah, people to watch, that's for sure.
For sure. So then the next list that we have got is Nathan Princey's, and he's running Adeptus Custodes. So, Jack, do you want to run through this one?
Oh, absolutely. So shout out to Princey immediately for his wonderful name for the list while I'm pulling it up. Where is he? There he is. Hang on. Yeah, okay. The list is appropriately called from memory. It's basically just a heavy bolter, don't worry.
Yeah.
And you'll find out why. It's Empress Chosen, so Adeptus Custodes, Arcs of Omen Troops is his compulsory. He's got a Shield Captain on Dawn Eagle Jet Bike with Superior Creation, Castellan's Mark, and Victor of the Blood Game's Tip of the Spear. It's a fully loaded out Dawn Eagle Captain, very hard to kill. Trajan Valorous, absolute staple of every custode list ever. Then we get into the real fun of this list, the real meat and potatoes. A unit of Custodian Guard with spears, then Sagittarum. What? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 units, if I'm counting this correctly, of 3-man Sagittarum.
I believe we had 24 in total, so yeah, that sounds right.
Yep. So these are the Forge World Custode Troop option with the massive bolt guns. They have, I believe, they're a heavy bolter profile, and then they also have a big strength 6 -2 3 damage shot on the back end of them. Might be strength 4 or something. They pump out so much output, and because they have free Misericordias as well, they're also not a sneeze in combat. This list is basically Custody board control. And to finish it off, he's got two little Allurus. He's got a Vexilla Praetor with the Magnificus, so everything within 6 is neg 1 to hit. And a little unit of Witch Seekers at the end with Flamers. I'm so keen to see Princey play this, man.
I love it.
Like, it's normally hard enough to kill Custode units, but just there's so many of them, and it's so much OBSEC, and they're just going to be everywhere. You're basically going to get bathed in, like, the rays of gold. It's not even going to be fun. Well, it is, but oh my days. I don't even know how you effectively stat check this list. Because even Custodes, normally their natural enemy is, you know, basically being outpositioned a lot of the time or not having enough units. They're very prone to alpha because if they lose 2 or 3 critical units early, they can just crumple. This list has so much redundancy. I'm so keen to see how he pilots it.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Yeah.
I think it'd be interesting to see how he goes into the next list we're going to talk about if he faces it, because it is something that I reckon this list would struggle against. Like, to a certain extent, not fully struggle, but I think it's kind of a little bit of a counter in that sense. I like it's something that Custodes do suffer from is shooting. Like, they've got good shooting, don't get me wrong, but they do suffer from not having a large amount of it in larger lists. Whereas this list, those 8 units bring a hell of a lot of firepower. And it's just, like...
It's funny. So because of it as well, he's running Emperor's Chosen, obviously. He gets that singular reroll, but he also gets 2 turns of something called Rendax. Now, you might say, hey, maybe against some of the big boys and the big monsters and Griblies or vehicles or anything like that, you know, it doesn't do well because it's only strength 5. But then you find out that for 2 solid turns, 6s to hit auto wound. And then you find out mathematically you can take down a big 9 to turn with just bolters, let alone the 3 damage shots. And then you find out all this other stuff. Then you don't account for all the Misericordias, then you don't account for everything else. It's absolutely bonkers, and then you still have to try and take them off primary and beat them on primary. And hey, guess what? Every single one of those Sagittarum can heroic intervene. Each one of those characters can heroic 6. You know, it's just crazy. But yeah, it's a really good list. He is undefeated with this list so far. He's been doing exceptionally well, so I'm really proud of him. He's doing amazing.
Yeah, it's gonna be. To be honest, I would love to see this on stream. Not gonna lie.
Yeah,
I'd love to see.
Oh, it's
this
a beautiful
on stream.
painted army as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's definitely one of my priority lists to watch. Is like waiting for the game that I get to put those Custodes up there.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, gentlemen, if there's nothing left to add, we've got one more list, and that is going to be Mr. Rowan Kennett, who's running Tyranids, and it's spicy.
What a list!
It is.
I love it.
Spicy. Let me just tell you, he's running Arcs of Omen Detachment with Elites as the compulsory. Hive Fleet, he's running Kronos with the Territorial Instincts Lurk adaptation. He's running a Hive Tyrant with Lashwit, Monstrous Bonesword with Paroxysm, Symbiostorm, the Horror with the Balethorn Cannon as the Warlord. He's got Neurothroat with Catalyst, Onslaught, and Symbiostorm. A Tervigon with Adrenal Glands, the Scything Talons, Catalyst, Symbiostorm, the Maw-Claws of Thyrax, and Heightened Senses Warlord trait. A Maliceptor in Elites with Neuroparasite, Psychic Scream, and Symbiostorm. A single Pyrovore, 3 Tyrant Guard with Rending Claws and Scything Talons, 3 Venom Thropes, a Zoanthrope Brood, I believe with 3 of them, with Neuroparasite and Symbiostorm, Then running the Parasite of Mortex with the Alien Cunning Warlord trait, so giving it OBSEC and counts as 5 models. Then in heavy support, running an Exocrine and 2 Tyrannofexes. One has got Voracious Ammunition, the other has got Dermic Symbiosis. So Voracious Ammunition is mortals on 6s, I believe. And then
you after the damage, you roll a dice, and on 2+, you do a D3 mortal wounds, I believe.
Yeah, nice. And then Dermic Symbiosis is the 4-up invo.
Yeah.
Comes in at 2,000 points with 2 CP in the bank, ready for turn 1. This list is...
They're also all OBSEC. All the monsters are, so it's great.
Yeah, thanks to Kronos. It's...
thanks to Locke, yeah.
Yeah. It is gnarly.
The absolute, like, centerpiece of this army as well, that people have been used to for a while, is still that Tervagon. Mama Tervagon is such an important unit because really good for ritual, really good for denying. She's also just an absolute beast in combat. Reroll all hits and wounds through the Warlord trait and the Maw-Claws, and every time she kills a unit, she just gets more attacks. Decent Psyker, the Malicepses. This is basically playing like defense of the city against the Kaiju. Like, and I'm so keen to see how armies are gonna have to sit there. Like, I want to see like photos on tables of the mono infantry guard army playing against this, just because it would look sick. But yeah, Rowan's a great Tyrannid player. Obviously, last year I had the privilege of coaching ACT and meeting a whole bunch of them, including Rowan. He's amazing. Like, he really made a name for himself with Tyrannid last year, and if he is working on this, I have played against a version of this list, and it terrifies me, and I'm so keen to see other people have to really respect the big bugs.
Oh yeah.
Welcome to Crusher Stampede 2 Electric Boogaloo.
But there's no Death Leaper, so 0 out of 10. Just ban him from the event.
100%.
His Death Leaper model is too cool.
Yeah.
He needs to bring it out again.
I mean, just looking at, there's some tech choices for sure, being the Tyrant Guard to protect the Hive Tyrant. It's a good thing to note that it's not flying Hive Tyrant either, it's walking. So it's going to pick a lane and it's just going to put firepower down range. The Pyrovore being a single Pyrovore, it's very interesting tech choice as well. Zoanthropes are pretty much staple, Venomthropes are staple, but you know, those big bugs, you know, the 2 Tyrannofexes with the Exocrine have just the firepower to deal with some stuff, as well as also being big beasties that can handle themselves in close combat as well. Like, it's all big stuff. Like, it's how quickly can you kill these guys, and if you can kill them, cool. Most likely you can't, and then they're gonna eat your face off.
Don't be fooled as well. This looks like an 8-year-old's just putting all their favorite bugs on the table and running at you. There is a very sinister mind behind the Tyranids.
Oh yeah.
He's absolutely charming, but will show no mercy whatsoever. So.
100%. I think he's the... I could be wrong, but he could be the ACT captain this year, or he might be taken over from Sam. So he, definitely like a player to watch out for going into ATC, but also for the rest of the season as well.
I want to say one more thing with this is that typically something that would be a big counter that you could see right now in the game, obviously aside from something like Guard, would be, you know, the new age edition of like these Iron Hands lists with all the melter everywhere and just firing and being really efficient. We don't see much of that right now in this event. I think we have 1 Iron Hands in total. So pretty good, you know, in terms of what the meta is and, you know, and how he's going to be there. It's great to see that there's not actually a lot there that's going to be in his way. He has a solid chance.
100%.
I'm calling it now. I also do want to see Cooper and Rowan play against each other. They've played multiple
Pacific
times
Rim.
before. Yeah, Pacific Rim job.
Yeah.
The absolute classic. So we will see.
Yeah, for sure. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, well, that covers things in terms of some of the lists that we're taking a look at for the Clash of the Titans 40k GT as I said at the start of the stream, we are going to be streaming it live here on the ATWN. With Jack running the tournament, he may be jumping in on commentary at times. I think we've got Sam lined up, as well as Deexie jumping on as the main commentator on the ground at the event, which is going to be awesome. You know,
The chapter calls and we answer.
But it's going to be awesome to be able to provide more coverage to the New South Wales scene. I want to thank Jack and Alex for joining us tonight and taking time out of your weeks to come and chat about the event. Great to have you both with us.
Not a problem whatsoever.
It's been fun.
So yeah, and ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, drop a follow. For those of you listening on the Down Under 40K podcast, we hope you enjoy the content. If you watch it on YouTube as well, give it a like. If you enjoy the content on the channel, make sure to hit that sub button. Hope you've enjoyed this one, but that's going to be it from us. Hope to see you on the weekend, if not at the event in person. I'm ScottyD, signing off. Catch you next time, ladies and gentlemen.